When creating your V, you can choose between a nomad, street kid, and corporate life path. The genesis of these life paths began with the destruction of the American family. Many states were home to large numbers of non-productive citizens at the beginning of the collapse. The welfare system quickly reached a state of attrition. States that instituted stringent controls in the beginning, like California, Texas, Utah, and Nevada, were much more prepared to deal with an extended crisis. But many states simply tried to bury their heads in the sand. Many felt the crisis would end quickly. It did not. Although many of the states soon instituted systems similar to the standard Northern California citizen identification process, by 1998 it was far too late. By the year 2000, over 150 million were disenfranchised. Circa 75% of these died. The greatest betrayal of the collapse was the destruction of the family unit, the basis for all forms of civilization since Homo sapiens first walked erect. By the 1980s, the family unit had already fragmented and then shattered, to be replaced in part by the neo-tribal booster and meta-family structures. These units were a suitable replacement for a family after the base socialization skills were in place. But in the early childhood stages of development, the lack of a cohesive and demonstrative family structure only crippled the youth of post-collapse America. So, what is happening to the children and how does this impact upon V? Three distinct structures exist that emulate V's potential life path. The neo-tribals, representing the nomad families. The street kids, dealing with the entirety of the street punk scene. And lastly, the mixed, nuclear and meta families that cover much of the corporate world. In the last 60 years, the number of Americans in a nuclear or classic two-parent family had gone down from 80% to 2%. During the collapse, the population of America was decreased by about 100 million. 1 in 3 of these deaths was a parent. Almost half of the families were sole parent, no significant contribution by the second biological parent families. With the other socioeconomic factors in sync, this effectively orphaned some 30 million children in the space of 18 months. 10 million of these children were completely unable to support themselves in any way. They simply died or were killed in the collapse. Another 10 million were killed trying to survive under martial law. This left 10 million people loose in society without even the socialization skills of an adolescent. The violence of the martial law period added another 10 million to this figure. By 2020, fully 11% of the population of America had grown up with no real family structure. This segment of the population also produced at twice the rate of other Americans. The question remains, with a huge section of the population having neither a frame of reference for parenting or any parenting skills, who raises the next generation? Street kid. They say if you want to understand the streets, you got to live them. Gangs, fixers, small-time pushers, you were raised by them all. Down here, the law of the jungle dictates the weak serve the strong. The only law in Night City you've yet to break. Street children make up most of the youth in Cyberpunk America. This is thanks to minimum supervision due to the increasing workloads and the lack of any public schooling system in most states. By age 6, most street kids are unsupervised for up to 6 hours a day. By age 12, this figure rises to 16 hours a day. By the age of 10, almost 90% of street kids are involved in some type of youth gang, either simplistic and feral child families, or possibly a block gang, or as a junior affiliate to a larger booster gang. Whatever the modus, the street kids were on their way to death in their teenage years. Most gangs are simplistic at the early age levels. These feral families are a common sight in post-collapse America. Groups of children living in a morass of garbage. Block gangs are an entrenched part of gang culture, being that these alliances are tied to a neighborhood or building. Children are naturally included in the structure. These types of gang are arguably most similar to their nomad cousins. All facets of life are shared and supported. These are the spiritual descendants of the welfare families of the pre-collapse. Some look after the children, while others get jobs. Some watch for intruders while others sleep. Some can teach the basics of literacy. These block gangs still have some semblance of human dignity and shy away from blatantly illegal activity. They cannot risk the chance of police retribution without the money to protect themselves. The street kids are abused by most police. Last are the affiliates, large and powerful booster gangs, always looking for replacements and new members. Attrition and the police are a constant toll on their numbers. Many allow very young sets to form. Jobs are farmed out as favors to loyal affiliates. Tribute in the form of cash and drugs is paid to the patron. There is a slightly adversarial relationship between the affiliates and the block gangs. As the kids get older, the affiliates are given higher and higher profile crimes to commit. The local block gangs don't appreciate this attention. Both sides are also very wary of the other going to the police. An uneasy compromise punctuated by violence from both sides usually wins out. By age 14, the affiliates are usually either full members or dead. It is not uncommon for a patron to give an execution over to a group of 12-year-old kids. Even in the cyberpunk era, a murder conviction is difficult to obtain with a juvenile. The most logical explanation of this is the generational gap. Most judges grew up in the more liberal times before the collapse, and there is still a prejudice against executing children. Usually, if any vague pretense of self-defense can be alleged, the kid will get off with a few years. Nomad. Roaming the Badlands, looting scrapyards, raiding fuel depots. Life on the road wasn't easy, but growing up in a nomad clan has its perks. Honest, integrity, and a love of freedom. Qualities that few in Night City possess, and no amount of money can buy. Called neo-tribalism by the scholars who study it, there is honor in the nomad system, even if it's only internal. It's not an easy life, but it is fair, at least when dealing with other nomads. These children have the most opportunity for creative play. They are exposed to the greatest selection of role models. They are taught value systems and cultural identity. They are also taught respect and discipline. Contrary to the corporate system, these things are not taught in an artificial setting, and they are not forced. Young nomads are also taught reading and writing, math, mechanics, and electronics, all the skills necessary to survive in this cyberpunk age. The internal respect that is so prevalent in nomad culture is a crucial factor in its success. The nomad policy of acceptance has led an interesting group to its doors. The families have a very high percentage of teachers, not just literate people trying to teach, but real academic teachers. In the wake of the collapse, many of the revolutionary leaders were teachers. When the military finally regained some control, the first thing they did was round up the radicals. Many of these people were smart enough to leave before the military arrived. When they fled, they joined the nomads. Teachers are not the only people who have fled to the sanctuary. Artists, lawyers, bankers, economists, ex-intelligence operatives, criminals, rockers, priests, simply a huge number of very educated and experienced people, and large numbers of farmers and craftsmen give the nomad groups the ability to survive. Corporates. Few leave the corporate world with their lives, fewer still with their souls intact. You've been there, you've bent the rules, exploited secrets, and weaponized information. There's no such thing as a fair game, only winners and losers. Corporate children are divided into the meta family at the technician clerical level, and a return to upper middle class child rearing methods, similar to the indulgent style of the baby boomers of the last century at the management executive level. A child who is taught in the corporate meta family is supervised and disciplined in corporate daycare and preschools. Visitation with parents is limited to holidays and family emergencies. It is necessary for corporate personnel to be able to work unsupervised. In the cyberpunk era, hesitation is death. Delegation and accountability are the rule of the day. Students are taught most facets of the business, but proprietary information is withheld. At age 15, the student is given a final examination. This examination will determine where the student will begin their career within the corporation, somewhat reminiscent of the GOAT, Generalized Occupational Aptitude Test. The system does not prepare the students for radical change outside of the direct working situation. In the middle and upper corporate levels, child rearing has again become much more personalized. Having worked their way through the hard times, these corporate parents that can afford to raise their children at home with the help of an au pair, servants, and a new group of exclusive care centers utilizing European methods. A child growing up in this environment will have a strong sense of elitism, matched only by the most exclusive of their peers. This is fostered by upper management in order to refine and strengthen the inherent class structure of the corporation. Among the parents, there is a constant current of vicarious competition as the triumphs of their children allow them to score social points against other corporate parents. Such success is supportive of the prevailing notion that these offspring will be rightful inheritors of their mothers' and fathers' company positions. In Night City, it is very expensive to obtain education. In common with the rest of America, public education has become highly limited and there is no shared national curriculum, albeit Night City tends to be more homogeneous in that respect. Prior to the Fourth Corporate War, 4 high schools were in operation: Richard Knight, G. Lucas, South City High, and El Coronado High. Another important consideration, which may or may not alleviate the pressure on the collapsing system, is that numerous breakthroughs have been made that have influenced how one might acquire knowledge. Most notable is the use of virtual reality. VR technology allows a great increase in speed and retention of material. However, the possibility of hostile interference with the computer can make the students pawns, especially for certain ideologies. Some students become psychological wrecks. To remedy this situation, the assistance of artificial intelligences has been sought, but AIs are not without their shortcomings, particularly when interacting with humans. In a series of traumatic incidents have occurred. Despite these problems, virtual schooling remains the fastest and most complete way to realize education within Night City, and it is affordable. In terms of tertiary education, Night City also has its own university. The Night City University began as Richard Knight University and was built in 1994 to be the academic center of his model city. He placed the campus on the western edge of beautiful Lake Park to balance the thriving corporate sector on the opposite side. Together they formed Night City's yin and yang of commerce and higher learning. After the corporate takeover in 2009, the campus was expanded to its present size and renamed Night City University. Night City University has been able to attract leading scholars in the computer field. Notable among them are Professor Kang Park, pioneering research in the field of neural chip interfacing, and Professor Alice Bloom, who was influential in the creation and standardization of the WorldNet. Night City also has a medical school, where the focus of the research is bioengineered enhancement and augmentation, biological nanotechnology, such as biological computers, memory systems, and cytological microrobotics. The students and interns also help run a medical center, where they generally do not turn anyone away. This place is often packed with screaming boosters, getting amputations and the like. It's not uncommon to get additional injuries here, especially when a wounded gang member thinks they have been waiting in line too long.